How's it going, folks? The weapons in the finals have gone through some serious changes since my last tier list. And since we haven't received any more balance changes in the most recent patch, I think it's about time to remake a new list of the best and worst weapons in the finals.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you our most dangerous contestant in the arena, HOMO!
All right, folks, I'll rank each weapon purely on its strength in the current state of the game, not on how fun they are to use or my personal preference. If that were the case, the list would probably be completely reversed. Okay, so without any more hesitation, let's get into it. Starting out with S tier, I'm also labeling this tier as instant advantage, meaning that, in my opinion, if you pick these weapons, you're straight up in a better position than you would have been using the weapons in the tiers below. Starting with the FCAR, nothing's new with this one, folks. As far as I can remember, the FCAR has always been the best gun in the game, and it still is. With a very low skill barrier, other than getting used to the recoil, the FCAR lets you use a stupidly strong weapon that is probably better than most of Light's weapons, all while getting to play as a medium with an extra 150 HP. There isn't a whole lot more to it. I think there are other weapons that are better than the FCAR, but it's the fact that the medium build gets to have such a strong weapon that puts it at the top of the list. Now, folks, if I made this list at the start of Season 3, then the LH1 would definitely be at number 1. But since they reverted the damage buff, it's kind of found its place. The visual recoil buff is still crazy, though, and that's why I'm picking it as the second best weapon in the game. It has equal damage at all ranges. The only downside to it is that you will have to be more static when you're aiming with it because the bloom when jumping or strafing is very random. And just to follow it up, the M11 and XP54, these SMGs are always going to be ridiculous in the right hands. I think the M11 is the better weapon, although it does require a completely different playstyle compared to the XP. If you can adapt the close range in and out playstyle that the double barrel mains use, then the M11 is clear. 40 rounds, shreds health, great hipfire and jump accuracy, and it has a quicker reload to the XP. These are the reasons why I prefer it as an SMG. Now, saying that, the XP is still an amazing weapon, and I'm still putting it in S tier. It gives you a much larger range than most of Light's other weapons, and it has a ridiculous headshot multiplier. The sights and recoil require only very basic skill. The XP is definitely one of the easiest weapons to use in the game, and if it wasn't for the slow reload time and the inaccurate hipfire accuracy, then it would easily be the best Light weapon. All right, moving on to A tier. I'm calling this tier great but not OP, starting out with the model 1887. The model at its core stands in a place where it could be considered a top 3 weapon. It has great range, doesn't require aiming down sights, very strong damage, and a quick enough fire rate, but it has a seriously tough, fatal flaw. The model's reload animation has what I would consider to be some sort of bug, but since it's been in the game for so long, I guess it's intended. The problem is that sometimes when reloading this gun, it won't allow you to shoot to cancel the animation. Now, what's strange about it is that sometimes you can shoot, but then other times you have to wait for the full animation to bring the gun back to 6 rounds. For that reason alone, I'm putting it at the top of A tier, but not quite S tier. The AK fits in perfectly as an A tier weapon. It hits relatively hard at all ranges, has nearly too much ammo, a decent headshot multiplier, and is generally just known to be an all-rounder weapon. It's boring, but does the job, and it's great for team play, such as breaking shields and equipment. I don't compare it to the FCAR because it isn't as strong, especially if you have decent aim. The FCAR always lands on top, but if you're looking for something a little more forgiving, then the AK is perfect. Finishing off A tier, we have the M60. In my last list, the Lewis gun was ahead as the best heavy weapon, but since the recoil change in Season 3, I have to say that the M60 is just better. 70 rounds, crazy headshot damage, and it's kind of odd to say, but its recoil really isn't that much worse than the Lewis guns right now. The heavy weapons aren't really on the same level as medium or lights, but then again, you have to factor in that you get so much extra health with the heavy build, and for that reason, the M60 is making its way into A tier on this list. Now we move on to B tier. To sum this tier up, These are weapons that have really high capabilities, but will be limited by the amount of skill it would require to be consistent with them. Starting out with the sniper, obviously the sniper has some of the highest damage potential in the game, and so that's what is putting it so high in this tier. I think the sniper's use case has grown a lot in Season 3, especially if you play ranked terminal attack. Another thing about the sniper is that people really do underestimate how effective it can be with an aggressive playstyle. I love using grapple sniper, but not in a hard scope camping like a bitch kind of way. The silenced pistol, practically just as strong, if not stronger than both SMGs, but it just requires way too much effort to even match what they can do. It's amazing, don't get me wrong, but having to single fire and maintain good aim with a weird sights just puts it as an exhaustive way to match the XP's effectiveness. The Lewis gun was once considered without a doubt the go-to heavy weapon, but the recent recoil change has really messed up this weapon's effective range, in my opinion. It still does a job in close range, but once you even get to that mid-range area, I find that maintaining accuracy, no matter how good your aim is going to be very tedious, and especially when you consider that it holds half the ammo as the M60, you won't be given the same wiggle room to spray and pray in situations that require it. The Recurve Bow, I love it. Such a breath of fresh air weapon. Now I do have to switch over to mouse and keyboard to use it, but that just highlights the type of weapon it is. I don't think it's better than the sniper, but it is very strong, and if you can get the timing down with it, it can be really fun to pair with Dash and Gateway. I think this tier is perfect for its use case and skill requirement. I have always ranked the throwing knives as one of the worst weapons in the finals, and I stand by it that until the buff, these things were just a joke weapon. But since the buff, and even after the recent damage nerf, I think the projectile speed and accuracy change has turned the knives into a very viable option for lights. Style points, headshot beams, and no reload makes the knives so much fun to use. And in terms of criticism, the only major flaw is their range, which is very small, making them an easy counter for players who've copped onto the knives playstyle. The double barrel change is an odd one for me. Obviously, the damage buff is amazing, being able to two-shot heavies and not having to awkwardly dance around them while waiting to reload. But we also see a much larger spread now and slower fire rate, meaning that you have to basically be inside the enemy to kill them. I think this tier is ideal for this weapon. In the right hands and with great movement, it's going to be super annoying to play against. But then again, the counter is so simple that I just can't put it any higher. C-tier weapons, these are all solid, but really wouldn't reach much higher on the list due to their potential for me. Starting with the Flamethrower, good damage, intimidating, pest control. You wouldn't even need hands to aim with this thing, but it's super situational. I love the Flamethrower, but one stun gun or enemy on high ground and it's over. The slug shotgun, very underrated. Other than the weird aiming perspective and the pellet travel time, I think the slug is a great pick for heavies. 100 plus damage at long range and a good fire rate make this thing really nice to pair up with heavies tech. Perfect for cleaning up fights or third partying. The FAMAS, it received another buff, but I'm still not able to get with it. The gun can be effective, but it feels so limited in situations where I'm trying to wrap a fight up quickly. I almost always feel like the FAMAS is just 1 or 2 shots shy of finishing a kill, and even though it has basically zero recoil, it just isn't strong enough to compete with the other ARs for me. Once you get past the sights and bloom with movement, then the revolver turns out to be a really hard-hitting weapon. It does require landing headshots to be effective at range, but unfortunately, even with amazing accuracy, I find the damage drop-off to be way too short for the revolver. I do think it's due a range buff at this stage of the game, especially when you consider how few people actually pick this gun. I love it though, to be honest, and I think it is a solid weapon. The Dagger is also a solid weapon. The backstab can one-shot every build in the game, even heavies if you add an instant quick melee. Obviously that statement makes it sound OP, but the fact is that it requires the same playstyle as the double barrel, plus the ability to always land hits in the back, because if you don't land the stab in the enemy's back, then you'd be better off trying to emote in front of them, hoping for mercy. I'm putting the sword right next to the Dagger. I know some people would have it the other way around, but the thing is, without animation canceling and with the removal of the multi-hit function, the sword is at the worst point it's ever been at. Now, I do think it's strong in quick play modes, bank it and power shift especially. But other than that, the sword's capacity is limited by its range and it's similar to the Flamethrower in a situational sense, just with less than half the health on your side. Still a solid weapon on this list, by the way. The SA-12-16, just like in my previous list, I think it's the most overrated heavy weapon. This gun's rhythm is too awkward, like that weird jazz from the movie Whiplash, except in the end you don't master it, but you realize that you won't be one of the greats because jazz is mid. And scraping its way into C tier is the Sledgehammer. Much more useful now with the hook ability. The Sledgehammer is a super strong weapon and is amazing for defending cash outs. Unfortunately, it's also been affected by the removal of multi-hit, so you can no longer hit those 3 pieces in one shot. Realistically though, it's just in the same boat as the other melee weapons, too easy to counter, but great nonetheless. Now we're into D tier, folks. I could have put these weapons in C tier, but I just felt that they deserve to be separated from those above it. The dual blades, I want to love these. They are quite strong, and the deflect is a nice feature, but I do think that they're meant to be used more aggressively than the Riot Shield, and medium just doesn't have the mobility for that playstyle. I also wish they buffed the time it takes to switch from attacking to deflecting because it's too slow for close range combat. The CL-40, I may not be a fan of this weapon, but man, the recent nerf has actually fucked it. The splash damage is like blowing farts at the enemy, and I do feel bad for the players that main it because it must be really frustrating to have to use more ammo than you have to begin with in order to finish a kill. And folks, the spear, yeah, I mean, it's decent, but the hammer's better for me. The extra range is a nice bonus, and the alt fire is great for power shift plays, but I mean, come on, it's a quick play weapon, and that's fine, but it won't be making its way up the list for me anytime soon. Finally, our E-tier weapons. If you use these, you enjoy the little things in life, like looking at nature and playing with crayons and coloring books. The burst pistol, when I read the patch notes for Season 3, it looked like they buffed it. Oh man, I was wrong. It's actually just a disadvantage to use it. Damage and range is too low, and the mag size is just sad. Best of luck to anyone who's willing to give it some love. The heavy grenade launcher. I'm promoting it from the worst weapon in the game to the second worst. Congratulations to anyone who mains this gun. You're making your way up, bro. It is possible to have some success with this weapon, but at what cost? I mean, sure, if you give it plenty of hours and get the angles down, then you'll start seeing enemies' health drop bit by bit. But then again, when I come against a heavy and see that they're using this thing, it's a nice little moment of relief. Last, and also least, the Riot Shield. Fuck me. I love this thing. I mean, it's the most frustrating weapon to play with and play against. It sucks ass, but I find it to be so bad that I actually can have fun using it. Chasing after lights who can simply just run in a straight line for eternity without any consequences is so satisfying when I'm trying to get myself ready to sleep. I also find it very soothing and therapeutic to close my eyes and have a nap between the melee animation. By the time I wake up, I'm just about getting to the second hit, and the game's just about over. Folks, that has been my weapons tier list for Season 3 of the finals. I love nothing more than hearing all your thoughts and opinions, so be sure to let me know what you'd have done differently in the comment section. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to respond. Ratings and follows are greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye now.